Just had Stephen Beitashour on, and we were talking a little bit about Landon. Boy, oh boy, he was always having nightmares the night before playing against him. One of the best. Let's talk about it. He has called it a career. Safe to say he will go down in history, in my books anyway, as the greatest American player. Agree or disagree, Scott?
Yeah, you have to agree. He certainly achieved more and risen higher than any American before him. We have a few goalkeepers you might want to put into that argument, but it's a different animal. Landon's the best.
You know, Scott, we expected this, but maybe a little bit surprising that it's going to happen this season. And I think this is all taking place, my gut tells me anyway, because he got snubbed in going to Brazil with Team USA, and he had a bad taste left in his mouth that he figures, hey, it's time, let's call it a career. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I asked him that at the end of the press conference yesterday, and he said, nah, that really didn't play into it. You know, Landon is wired differently from any other soccer player I've dealt with, in that for a lot of these guys, soccer is their lives. It's really the thing that they live for. And it's never been that way with Landon. He's always had maybe a broader, richer life. He's a little more rounded. Soccer's just a slice of his life. And he talked repeatedly yesterday about needing to do what makes me happy, things that make me happy. And he said something that I thought was really, really a salient point, was that for 16 years, every single thing he's done, he's had to think in terms of, how does this affect me for tomorrow's training session or tomorrow's game? And, you know, watching pro athletes as a child, hey, I wanted to be a pro athlete too. I didn't have the talent. But the life that they live is much more difficult than we believe it is. And I can understand why he might want to get off the train, given that he doesn't have that burning desire to be a professional athlete.
There's something that Landon had and still has as he finishes up with the LA Galaxy, Scott, that I don't think we're going to see from another American player for a very long time, and that's a deadly finish, a poacher, a guy that knew what to do when he got in the box with that ball. We haven't seen that from a lot of American players coming up, but we saw it from Landon from the early stages of his career, even to the late stages. Once he's in that box, he's deadly.
You know, he is, but it's one facet of many things, and I think Landon's actually a little bit underrated in that he does so many things well. He's a great setup guy. He can beat you on the dribble. He can still beat you with his speed. Maybe not as often as he could a few years ago, but you know, we saw him run down some faster players at times this year. He sees the game so well. He's a great leader. He's great in the locker room. There's just so many things that he does well. And on top of it, he's probably the best quote in MLS.
What's the next step for Landon Donovan after it's all said and done this season? Maybe with another championship ring on his finger. Is it something that he wants to give back to the game and get involved in? Or do you see that he is just going to drift off into the sunset and no one will know what he's doing in the next number of years?
Well, he says he wants to work with kids, and I think that that's really a passion of his. You can see it when he is dealing with kids. And he's already talked to the Galaxy about being involved in their academy program, so I think we're going to see him doing a bit of that. I also think we're going to see him take some time off. He said he wanted to spend more time with friends and family, and he wants to do a little more travel, and I think he wants to live with a certain amount of freedom. But I think I think it's more likely we'll see him working with kids than we will see him back involved in the senior game in some way.
Has he talked about possibly putting a book out of his career, his life in the game?
He hasn't, but I'm sure that he's going to be approached for that. And really, there's a number of books you could do. You know, you could do a children's book. You could do a true biography. You could do Landon's hints on soccer. I mean, he could really, go a long way as an author.
To me, this is the first time I've ever seen Bruce Arena get emotional. I mean, we've seen him get emotional winning championships, but not this kind of emotion. This was special. Talk about that bond, that relationship they built over the years, Scott.
Well, you know, they've been together really for it seems like forever. They remember Landon was coming up to the national team soon after that 1999 the U17 World Cup, and Bruce was the coach. So Bruce brought Landon into the national team and brought Landon to stardom in that sense. And And with the Galaxy, I think they've had a really tight relationship. I think Bruce really understands Landon in ways that some other coaches, including Jurgen Klinsmann, really don't. Like I said, Landon's wired differently. You have to understand who Landon is and what he's about, and it's not like the other players in the locker room. And I think Bruce really understands that, and I think Bruce really appreciates it.
Has he talked about MLS, how it's grown in the number of years that he has been in, and when he started, that now today it is a league that is taken seriously all over the world? Did he talk about that at all?
He did. He was asked about just the changes that we've seen in this country and how it played out and how we saw so much of it during the World Cup. Just the passion that we saw from the fans, and he said, I'm thinking back in 2001, and I look at the All-Star game last night, and you see the passion of the people and what the game means and who we're playing and the caliber of the players who are next to me. And you think back to 2001, and it's just a crazy difference. That was the term he used, crazy difference. He says, I think when you're in it, you're not aware of what's really going on. The growth is slow, but it's significant. And now you wake up and it's 2014 and you see what's going on. You see what happened this summer in the World Cup and the people in the U.S. paying attention. I think we should be proud of what we've accomplished in 18 years of this league. That's what Landon said yesterday.
Scott, just before we let you go, we really appreciate your time. Did Landon speak about his biggest accomplishment? Did he speak about his biggest disappointment at all?
No, it was about a 25-minute press conference, and we more dealt with, I think, some nuts and bolts and a little bit on legacy. He was asked about his legacy, and he said that really what he cared about was that he was seen as a good teammate, that he was, that what mattered most to him wasn't so much the goals and assists and the achievements as it was the relationships that he built in the game. And that's something I hear from a lot of players when they're, after they've retired and when they've gone on, is when they think back, hey, the accomplishments are nice, but it's those relationships that really matter the most.
Scott, we'll close it out with this. You've covered the Galaxy. You've covered MLS for a number of years. You've watched Landon Donovan a number of times. As a guy that's in this business, did Landon always give you respect and give you the time when you needed it, or was he at times difficult to deal with?
Landon was generally very good to deal with. Like anyone, there's times he doesn't want to talk, but I always found Landon to be really honest in ways that a lot of athletes aren't, and so well spoken. I often thought he was the brightest guy in the league, and there are some really intelligent people in MLS, and Landon is among them, but he just speaks so well, and that's why I think one of the things, if he wants to do television, I know there were some mixed reviews of his performance during the World Cup. I actually thought he was pretty good. I think he really has a future there because he is so well spoken and so intelligent.